before we start, if you're watching this, hit subscribe. Stories like this deserve to be shared. I came home that Friday night to the quiet hum of our apartment. Usually, the smell of her cooking or the faint scent of her perfume greeted me. But tonight, nothing. Just the dim light of the living room and the faint whir of the fridge. She wasn't there, and my first thought was that she'd gone out with friends. Not unusual. Her phone buzzed on the counter, face up. I picked it up reflexively, knowing I shouldn't. Texts from her friends, mundane things, laughter emojis, plans for the weekend. Nothing alarming. And yet my gut tightened. We'd been married for 5 years. Married in a blur of young love and promises, and somehow, in the middle of our small apartment filled with memories, I felt that invisible shift, like I'd blinked and the person I thought I knew was already halfway out the door. I tried calling her once, twice, straight to voicemail. I left a message. "Hey, where are you? Did you get home okay?" My voice sounded too cautious, too hopeful. I walked to the balcony and looked at the city lights, a cold wind brushing against my face. A few hours later, she walked through the door. Her hair was messy, and she smelled faintly of perfume. Not ours, something heavier. She smiled casual, like she'd just returned from a normal night out. But her eyes, the way she avoided mine, made me feel like a stranger in my own home. We sat down at the kitchen table. I asked where she had been. "Out," she said. That was it. No details. I nodded, pretending not to notice the tremor in her voice, pretending not to notice the faint scent of someone else lingering on her jacket. That night, I barely slept. The unease followed me like a shadow. And then, the next morning, my phone buzzed. A message from her. I opened it, and every word cut deeper than I could have imagined. It was short, clinical, and it ended everything. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I need to tell you what it said and why it shattered the life we'd built. The text blinked at me on my phone screen, like a neon sign flashing in the darkness. I needed space. I slept over at Alex's last night. I'm sorry. My fingers froze. I reread it 3 times, hoping I'd misread, that some cruel autocorrect had twisted her words. But no, each word was deliberate, cold. She had chosen to tell me like this, short, impersonal, and final. I sat on the edge of the bed, phone trembling in my hand. The apartment felt smaller, suffocating. Her laughter, once comforting, replayed in my mind like a soundtrack to a life I thought was ours. I could still see her curled up on the couch last week, her head on my shoulder, whispering about future plans we'd never make. I called her immediately, straight to voicemail. My voice cracked when I left another message. Why? How could you do this to us? The line went dead before I could say anything else. For hours, I wandered through the apartment, touching the spaces where she'd been. The empty chair at the dining table, the side of the bed she hadn't slept in, the coffee mug still warm from this morning. Every corner screamed betrayal. I wanted answers, confrontation, closure, anything, but there was nothing. By noon, she returned my call. Her tone was calm, almost rehearsed. "I needed to figure things out," she said. Her words were deliberate, calculated. No remorse, no empathy. I could hear the pause between her sentences, the careful shaping of excuses. I asked her if it meant she was leaving. She didn't answer directly. I don't know anymore," she said, a whisper that sounded more like a question than an explanation. And that was the moment I realized. The life we'd built, the trust, the shared dreams, the inside jokes that had kept us alive through smaller fights, was gone. She had chosen someone else, or maybe the idea of someone else, over everything we'd fought for. I felt a cold clarity settle over me. Betrayal wasn't sudden. It had been slow, creeping into our mornings, our conversations, our silence. I hadn't seen it coming, but now it was undeniable. By the time I hung up, the apartment was quiet again. But I wasn't alone. Her absence, her choices, her message, they were all there, pressing in, demanding a response I wasn't sure I could give. I knew I had to decide what to do next. But I also knew that nothing could undo what had been done. That evening, I waited, not for her to come home. She was already gone, but for the courage to confront the reality I'd been avoiding. When she finally walked through the door, I was sitting at the kitchen table, her message still glowing on my phone. She looked at me, that familiar mix of guilt and defensiveness in her eyes. "We need to talk," I said, my voice quieter than I expected, but every word carried the weight of months of denial and heartbreak. "I've told you everything," she said, almost too easily. I just needed this." "Needed this?" I echoed, my voice breaking. "You slept with someone else. You chose someone else. And you think a single text can fix that?" Her eyes flicked away. She didn't answer. The silence between us was louder than any fight we'd ever had. It was full of unspoken things. All the nights I'd waited up for her, all the plans we'd whispered about for the future, all the small gestures that had built the life we shared, gone. I can't. I stopped, swallowing the lump in my throat. I can't do this anymore. I loved you. I still do. But love isn't enough if there's no trust. There's no coming back from this. She tried to reach for my hand, but I pulled back. I didn't hate her. Not fully. I just mourned her. Mourned the person I thought she was, the us I thought existed. I spent that night packing a bag. Not angrily, methodically. Each shirt folded, each book shelved, each photo carefully removed. It was the last act of holding on before letting go. When the door closed behind me the next morning, I didn't look back. The apartment, our shared life, stayed behind like a ghost. And for the first time in months, I felt the air move freely around me, untainted by lies or betrayal. Heartbreak doesn't always come with screams or chaos. Sometimes it comes quietly, in the spaces between words, in the spaces left behind by people who leave. And sometimes it's only when someone chooses to break you that you find the strength to finally rebuild yourself. If you've ever experienced betrayal, or if this story resonates, share your thoughts in the comments. And don't forget to subscribe. You never know whose story might help you feel less alone.